Now we are now going to elect the chairman. We comply with Annex 4 of the House rules to elect the chairman. So would a member propose or nominate a candidate? Ms. Yang Kuchi, I nominate Ms. Chen Yuen-Han. Ms. Chen, do you accept the nomination? Yes, thank you. Any other seconder? Any seconder, please? Yes, two. There are two seconders. Any other nomination? I think there is none. We've just made a quorum. So Ms. Chen Yuen-Han is the chairman of the subcommittee. So please take the chair. And then let's see whether we need to elect a vice chairman. It's for the chairman to chair the meeting for the election of the vice chairman if needed. Good morning, members. Do we need a vice chairman? Any nomination, please? Mr. Tan Ka-pyo. I nominate Mr. Cheung Kok-chiu. Mr. Cheung, do you accept the nomination? Yes, I do. Any seconder, please? Yes, several. I see several hands. So, there is no other nomination. So, Mr. Cheung Kok-chiu is elected the vice chairman. Please invite the officials into the chamber. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chow. Apologies, Mr. Chow. I know that you are most qualified, but why the Policy Secretary didn't come this morning? At the welfare panel on the 7th of December, Mr. Matthew Cheung and Professor Nelson Chow updated the panel on the latest development on retirement protection. And we are glad here today to update you on the latest development and answer members' questions. If I may make a short kick-off speech, I'd like to thank the subcommittee for inviting us to attend the first meeting of the subcommittee. The administration attaches importance to development of retirement protection. Under the Commission on Poverty, a task force has been set up to study this issue. The CE, in his 2014 policy address, has also pointed out that the government has adopted an open and practical approach in considering the way forward. If I may highlight the main points in the paper. At present, retirement protection system in Hong Kong is based on the multi-pronged approach suggested by the World Bank, and that includes voluntary saving, non-contributory social welfare system, and the MPF. The three pillars of our existing protection mechanism or system has been enhanced from time to time. Say we introduced the OH allowance OH living allowance to give supplement to the elderly, to those above age 65. This is one more level of protection between CSSA and one's self-financing. We are considering enhancing our retirement protection. We are considering the sustainability and affordability of various schemes. We noticed that the community had different views on retirement protection. As for the task force under the Commission on Poverty, it appointed Professor Nelson Chow last year to study retirement protection schemes. Various schemes are now being studied. We expect that the team by mid-2014 will report to the task force. The final report will be given to the task force. It will be a study. There will be analysis and data on various schemes. We know that Professor Chow's team has been collecting data and has been talking to different stakeholders and different political parties and proposers of various retirement schemes. And the team has also met with employers and employee groups. There were focus discussions. The team is now studying several representative schemes. They are doing actuarial projections and analysis. They look at sustainability and affordability of such schemes. The government departments and bureaus will continue to provide support to the consultancy team so that the study can proceed smoothly. We'll welcome members' advice. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chow. Ms. Emmy Wong of the FSTB, do you have anything to add? No, madam, I have nothing more to add. I'm happy to take questions. Mr. Chang Kwok-chu. Well, we don't have many members present today. Maybe we don't need to impose a time limit. Chairman, thank you. With regard to the administration's paper, with regard to retirement protection schemes, I think the term just appeared once or twice in the paper. Yet, in respect of OALA, CSS, elderly CSSA, and OAA, there is a lot of coverage. And also the three pillars are also mentioned time again. It seems that the administration doesn't want to provide any retirement protection. You also mentioned the consultancy team led by Professor Nelson Chow. With regard to an overall retirement protection scheme, what is the position or attitude of the government? All along, the administration has not given any information on the following. With regard to the three pillars, with regard in particular, personal savings, and MPF, may I know what is the average MPF payout when a person retires today? Do you have any average number? The second point is this. When people retire, what is the average saving of a retiree upon the day of retirement? A few years ago, HSBC conducted a study, and the number was about $300,000 in terms of personal savings of a retiree. That was the average. I don't know whether that was a representative study. Has the administration done any such study? And if not, has the administration made reference to information from the private sector? If you have that today, that's the best. If not, then I hope the administration can produce such data. Ms. Wong or Mr. Chow? Yes, Ms. Wong, please. Yes, Chairman, if I may answer the question on the accrued benefits of MPF schemes. As at the end of December last year, total asset $514.1 billion. And there are about 2.5 million. I'm not talking about what they have today. I ask when one retires today, When one retires today, what is the average MPF payout for this retiree? Before, when I was preparing for this meeting, I did some calculations. Say if a scheme member is now 25 years old, no, please don't put it that way. That's just an estimate, and we know how to make estimates, but tell us the actual facts. In 2014, one has retired on January 2014. One obtained a payout from the MPF. What was the average? After offsetting everything, in the past there may not be any offsetting. There might not be any offsetting. Different scheme members have different salaries, and that's not the problem. I want an average. I just want an average. Somebody might have saved up to tens of billions of dollars, but some might just have saved just a few dollars. But if you add them together and divided it, then you know the average. Let me refine my point. Today, say there are 10,000 people who are age 65 and they have obtained the MPF payout. How much do they get on average? From 2000 until 2014, within the 14 hours. How many get $10,000 to $50,000 when they leave MPF? How many get $50,000 to $100,000? So that we know what the picture is. That may not be accurate. Say from 10 people get about $10,000 to $50,000, and then 20 people get $50,000 to $100,000. Then I know the rough picture. Can you provide such a breakdown? What I ask may not be the same as yours, but I think that will give us a picture. That's okay, Mr. Leung. You may follow up. In fact, I'm asking for two numbers. The first one, the average payout today. Average MPF payout today. And number two, if I retire today, what is the average savings, average personal saving of a retiree today? Now, we are able to see the protection given by the government, but we are not able to know that part. What's the difference between the two? Now, the first question is, now he is now 60, say, a lot of people are 65 years old. And when they retire today, what is the average MPF payout for them? The second question is, the person retires today, he is 60. What is the average personal savings? Average personal savings. Don't tell me Li Ka-shing doesn't have a cent because his money has been put into a trust. Well, I will talk to the MPF authority, see if they can provide information. Under the system, we only have a total number. We may have to do some calculations. I think the administration has to explain to us. You say the three pillars are equally important. You cannot just say that is MPF payout. But if the MPF payout is just $100,000 upon retirement, how can that $100,000 see you through? We don't expect that people after spending $100,000 will go to heaven. If you say there is enough money payout from the MPF, then I will be convinced. You also mentioned personal saving, and I don't know what's the average personal saving, and therefore I need the number.
I'm somewhat surprised because I would have thought that you should be very familiar with those figures, and if you think that everything will work out very fine and there is no need for anything additional to be done, then at least you should have been able to tell us today what the situation is going to be like. And if you have to go back and get the figures, then you said that you had to check with the MPF authority, then I would be very surprised. First question, Mr. Chow, you will have to answer that. Yes, as the Bureau Director said at the December meeting, the administration attaches a lot of importance to retirement protection. That's precisely why we have set up this dedicated task force on retirement protection. We have also commissioned Professor Nelson Chow's team to conduct the survey, and it will be coming up with various proposals, and there will be detailed analysis of the various options. And we do have universal protection, and there are also other options on the basis of the World Bank's multi-pillar model. There might be enhanced versions, and at least there are 5 or 6 options being studied by Professor Chow's team. And we believe that all these will help us to take the matter forward so that we can have an objective, pragmatic, and open attitude in looking at the different options. I believe that at the next stage, there will have to be more community discussions, because in a community, we understand that there are 2 very different camps of views, and a very large part of it is that there should be universal retirement protection. But then there are others who think that they're concerned about the sustainability of a universal retirement protection, and they're also concerned about the employer's contribution to the package. That's why we are adopting a very objective and pragmatic attitude in looking at the various proposals from the community. With regard to the current 3-pillar approach, I understand that Professor Chow's team will be looking into that very specifically, including the amount to be accumulated under the MPF scheme. To what extent would that afford proper protection for people after protection? And I'm sure Professor Chow's team would also be collecting information about other areas. And I understand that in the past the Central Policy Unit has also conducted some surveys, but then there are some technical difficulties because some respondents, when they respond to questions about their own personal assets and so on, the information provided by them, the response rate has been on the low side. That's why the outcome or findings of our survey was that in terms of net assets being held by the individuals, that might not have been very accurate. That's why we believe that Professor Chow's team will have to collect more information so as to be able to tell whether or not the 3-pillar approach will be able to protect people after retirement, and also about its sustainability. All right, Mr. Tan Ka-Piu, 5 minutes each, please. Madam Chair, I think putting pressure to bear on Ms. Wong from the FSTB is not really working. So it's almost like a black hole. Well, in 14 years, for people reaching 65, how much are they able to get? And will they be able to get a high return on their investment? Well, I think the fact is they have no idea. They don't know at all. And last year, the authority took us some $8 billion as the administration fee for the fund managers. Well, Ms. Wong, don't worry. Please ask your seniors to come here, because I don't want to have only people from the Labor and Welfare Bureau to be here. In fact, all I want you to know is that after working so long and so hard for this MPF scheme, is rather futile. So, well, the Commission on Poverty has engaged Professor Chow's team to submit something or come up with something. So what kind of task have you given this group? So is it that he's supposed to look at all the options available and then he'll come up with one single package that will afford retirement protection to everyone? Or is he just asked to comment on the various proposals from the community? Or is he just asked to answer one question, that is, should we introduce this universal retirement package or scheme? Mr. Chow, well, when we asked the team to give us its recommendation, well, the COP engage the team to look at this. That is with regard to the sustainability of the current three-pillar approach. And that's point number one. And number two, for the various options being mooted in the community, including the 30-year projection, well, there are different options, and they've also come up with proposals to increase the contribution made by the employers or employees to a certain extent, and there should also be a seed fund to be set up. So other than Professor Nelson Chow, we have also got a professor on actuary who will help us with the actuarial calculations. And they will also be looking at certain data. And of course, some projections will be required. For example, the projected economic growth, what's the growth rate? And they will also be making reference to the CNS department's projection on our population growth, including the people from different age profiles. And also, earlier on, the CPU also did some calculation. So I think you're repeating yourself again. All right, after Professor Chow has looked at all the options, will he be summarizing everything, and then he'll be coming up with something that would be feasible and workable? Well, my understanding is that for the team, it will be looking at the various options, and it will also be looking at the adequacy or otherwise of the three-pillar approach. So what kind of protection will be afforded by the different approaches for the retirees? It will also be looking at the individuals themselves, for example, how much they'll be getting every month. So Professor Chow will be looking at the current three-pillar approaches, and also, let's say, 6 options being proposed in the community. What if he says that, well, none of these will work out fine, then there will be further delays. Is that right? Well, his first and foremost task is to conduct an analysis on the various packages. Well, the government's attitude is that we hope that this study will be able to come up with some basis for discussion in a community. As I said, in a community, there are different views. So the team will provide an objective basis for further discussion. As you can see, the administration's current three-pillar approach will be able to achieve a certain effect in affording retirement protection to people. So at least the team will be able to do that, and this team will go further so that it will be summarizing and consolidating the different proposals. As far as I am aware, they are still considering these, because the basic work is to look at the various options. I know this, but then in the end, if the team is not able to come up with an ultimate package, then it's just a delaying tactic, because it can just say that, well, the various options have their own pros and cons. It doesn't represent any progress at all. All right, there might have been community discussions. Yes, you might be throwing this out as food for thought, but then in the end, if the team is not able to come up with one package or one proposal, then it's just delaying the matter. Mr. Poon Siu Ping, well, according to the paper, it says that the current approach is the three-pillar approach, and then for the MPF system, basically, is the model advocated by the World Bank's is one of the models under the World Bank's multi-pillar approach. And then in the end, if you make contribution, then you'll be able to get something back for retirement. But then, as the World Bank has pointed out, that will not be able to achieve the desired effect. So my question for the administration is, do you agree that the current offsetting arrangement would not be able to achieve the World Bank's requirement? As we all know, we've been asking the administration or the chief executive to do something about this offsetting arrangement. The ratio should be lowered, and then the chief executive said that even if he has not said anything about this in the policy address, it doesn't mean that he is not going to do anything about it. As some colleagues have just asked, we understand that Professor Chow will be conducting the study, and as the paper sets out, he will be looking at all the representative proposals, and there will be actuarial calculations on those bases. Well, the administration has been emphasizing that it would be pragmatic and open. All right, what if Professor Chow comes up with 6 proposals? I don't know how many. So will he be ranking them so that he can come up with something like a league table? and then we'll be able to look at which is the best model for Hong Kong. And as you just said, he will be submitting the proposal to the COP. So have you come up with any yardsticks or benchmarks to look at which option will best suit Hong Kong's circumstances? And of course, there are different members sitting on the COP, and in the end, you might say that there's no consensus, and you said that you have an open mind, but then we don't know how long it would take. So can you can you tell us what you're thinking now? Who is going to answer the question? Ms. Wong. Yes, I'd like to answer the question on offsetting. Well, under the multi-pillar approach proposed by the World Bank, in fact, it's a framework. So in different places, the individual pillars might vary somewhat and how they are being implemented, including the contribution rate by the employers and employees. They do vary from place to place. And in Hong Kong, the MPF system is, as you are very familiar with, well, we try to take on board views from different sectors. And earlier on, the chief executive also talk about it after the announcement of the policy address. And then looking forward, we will have to look at the comments from the community, because it involves the direct interest of both the employers and employees, and there has been there are very divergent views. So at this stage, we are still in the listening mode, and we'll take the matter forward on that basis. Yes, Mr. Chow. In fact, we have actually provided some objective analysis for the team to conduct the analysis. Number one, sustainability, because as we can see in some overseas experience, yes, they might be able to provide adequate protection for this generation, but then with an aging population, the sustainability might be in doubt. So sustainability for the various options would be something that we have to look into by the team. Secondly, the team will also have to assess the various options, the adequacy or otherwise of them, because in reality, under the different scenarios, for example, for the retiree, how much would they be able to get as income for retirement? So he will have to make this comparison, and that's the consequence of the various options. But then in different places, because of the different rate of contribution, well, in some cases, both employers and employees will be required to contribute more. And in other cases, the administration will have to provide a one-off seed money, and they might also require recurrent injection from the public cover. So we will have to look at the burden on the part of the contributors, and also whether or not it's sustainable. So these are the things and objective requirements that we require the team to look at, so that the team will be able to do some actuarial calculations. We expect that Professor Chow's team will be able to submit a report before the middle of this year, and then the COP will be looking into it, and then by that time we will see how we can release the results to the community. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Lam Kwok Hong. Madam Chair. Mr. Poon Siu Ping said that CY said that even if he did not say it, it didn't mean that he would not be working on it. In fact, he had been doing many things even though he had never said it. That's about lying. All right, for the MPF scheme, you're talking about a retirement protection scheme under which almost all people will be making the contribution. And then for CSSA is Social Security. And then for personal savings, you will have to save that on your own. And then for MPF system elsewhere, do they also have this offsetting arrangement? If not, then why do you not change it?
As for CSSA, there are many restrictions on eligibility. If you are old and you are disabled, you can get either disability allowance or CSSA. You are old and disabled, you can just choose one of the two. You may have to pray to God that you will only be old but not disabled. This is a cruel system. You really need to change it. You say, I'm not knowledgeable, but in fact you're doing nothing. Now you're going to set up a future fund. After 10 years, there will be structural deficits, according to John Zhang or Zhang John. Have you consulted Professor Chow, Professor Nelson Chow? Probably Professor Chow has been silenced. If you have money, you just set aside money for other things, but not for retirement protection. We ask for giving out goodies, and you say we are bad guys. 10 years ago, did you consider there will be lots of mergers and acquisitions of the internet or internet providers or communication service providers? Or after 10 years, will the finance of China collapse? You don't know. There is a need for you to start doing retirement protection now. Professor Chow is going to consolidate the views of different parties. So who is the CE, C.Y. Leung or Nelson Chow? The government has to form a view. The government has to set the direction. What do you want? And after 10 years, you know there will be structural deficits. If your projection is correct, then you have to tell the people of Hong Kong that in face of this critical financial situation, how can you save the elderly who are poor now? Or maybe you can cut tax, do away with MPF, let people just save up for their old days. Now you're going to set up a future fund. It's just like God. It's difficult to prove God's existence. And we really don't know whether that problem will occur after 10 years. But in the long run, you can say everybody will die. That's what Cain said. In the long run, everybody dies. Therefore, let us don't do anything. Let's don't save any money. Now, with the concept of the future fund, there is nothing we can discuss. Even if I ask for a 10%, there is no way to add value because there is no mechanism for me to add value. There is no insurance mechanism. You ask people to insure themselves. That's a waste of breath. And you are just putting Professor Nelson Chow on the spot. Before he publishes the report, you say in the future you surely die. Then what are we going to do? Just buy coffins? Or you say your life in the future will be better. Now if you say after 10 years you certainly die, then you better do nothing. Okay, you can, well, Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. The subcommittee is to discuss retirement protection. The administration says that the 3 pillars can solve the problem. Yet the administration has set up a consultancy team to consider universal retirement protection. I think this subcommittee should look at the 3 pillars one by one and whether each pillar is okay. Let us look at MPF and then personal savings and then CSSA. See if each pillar does work. And then we can point out whether the pillar is problematic or not, the strengths and weaknesses, the adequacy or otherwise. of these pillars. As for Professor Charles' study, I think that's a waste of time and money. He is to assess whether the proposals made by the community are sustainable or adequate. But there is no conclusion. There will be no conclusion. The consultancy team will only comment on those schemes. They will say this scheme has these problems, that scheme has those problems. That's really not very meaningful. That's very different from what we are asking for. We are asking for a decision whether there will be universal retirement protection or not after the study has been completed. I guarantee that they are not going to give this answer. It is a waste of time, it's a waste of taxpayers' money. The study is meaningless unless the administration says that a decision will be made basing on the study. Why can't that consultancy team be allowed to come to a conclusion? I've asked Professor Chow and he said that he wouldn't do that. We asked for a conclusion, whether we should have universal retirement protection or not. We need an answer from that study, but they are not going to do that. So let's don't waste our time. Let's do our own work. Let us conduct our own study, say. We can ask our research division to conduct a study. Let us look at the effectiveness of the three pillars, and then we consider how can universal retirement protection solve the problem of aging population. That's the direction of the subcommittee. Otherwise, we just wasting our time. That's my proposal. That's okay. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung has made a proposal, and then let's deal with that later. Perhaps the administration can answer my question, whether Professor Nelson Chow will come to any conclusion. Mr. Chow, with regard to universal retirement protection or retirement protection at large, there are different views in the community. Different schemes have different coverage or elements. Contributions by employers and employees are also very important. Some people may prefer saving up more now so that they can have adequate protection upon retirement. Some may prefer the other way around. And we need to, and then the administration will also have to handle that situation. Well, please don't, my apologies. Will you conduct a comprehensive survey and seek the views of the people of Hong Kong? Employees make contribution, employers make contribution. Will you ask we conduct a survey to gauge the inclination of people? Now, the team has contacted the political parties and the proponents of various schemes. It has also had several focus group meetings covering employers, employees, students, housewives, different sectors of the community. Their views will also be have also been assessed. And then, will there be a comprehensive survey on the whole territory? Our next step is to look at Professor Chow's final report. And then we will go back to the COP to discuss the way forward. We have yet to decide on whether a comprehensive territory-wide survey will have to be conducted. Those who have asked for a first round have completed, and now we can start the second round. But before that, let me say something. Last term, I was present. Before that last term, we had similar studies. Our conclusion was that concerning MPF, in fact, the labor sector and the academics had predicted what have occurred today. In fact, in countries which are practicing this three pillars approach, they are trying to strengthen some of the pillars. Last year, we visited Japan. The Vice Chairman and myself and other members visited Japan. They were touching up the pillars. They tried to strengthen the pillars. The administration should provide the numbers. I respect the members' request. With regard to the proposal of universal retirement protection, we think that the administration should add OPS. Even if we have OPS, at a certain point in time, we may still have to face a more serious problem because of aging population, and some more will have to be done. But that's something that can be put aside first. I think the FSTB should be able to answer us promptly. I find it strange that Ms. Cha is not able to answer our question. And then we are told that even the MPFA is not able to answer a question, but we have had MPF for more than 10 years. They should have some numbers. Do you have the sums? Do you collect data? Or it is just the business of the LWB? You just sit there, you just let the black hole to exist. You think that's not your problem, that's a problem of the LWB. I find it strange. Thank you, Chairman.
就係其實嗰個數據上面，或者即係嗰個累算權益嗰個，即係第期時，即係譬如到退休嗰陣時。
Now concerning the MPF payout, accrued interest, in fact, we do have the numbers. And we are also involved in professional study. We have provided information. We provide projections. Say different age groups for different age groups, different income levels, different rate of returns, and then we make projections under the three pillars or multi pillars, and what is and also the contribution of the MPF. The three pillars complement each other. As for low income earners, that is MPF is not enough. It's difficult to make a cross-section and give you an average for Hong Kong. And that number may not be very meaningful. It really has to be fit in with different age groups and different income groups. Well, according to Ms. Wong, then low-income earners will not have adequate MPF to see them through their twilight years. And we have seen that, and you have also seen that. Then has the administration made any preparation for that? Low-income earners, more than 500,000 of them. There may be even 1 million low-income earners. How can you help them? The three pillars complement each other. They have no savings. They don't have enough MPF. Then they go to CSSA, right? So you foot the bill. Well, that's our conclusion. It seems that you also have this conclusion. Well, the system is not unique in Hong Kong, not unique for Hong Kong. Hong Kong is unique in the sense of irresponsibility. That's my criticism. You don't need to be deterred. Just answer my question. This is the design of our system. The three pillars complement each other. The three pillars complement each other. Said by Mr. Chow of LWB, Professor Nelson Chow is looking into ways and means of improving our retirement protection system.
second round, Peter Zhang. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just now I asked this question, and all I was trying to do was to ask the administration to tell us what the current situation is like. Yes, Professor Chow will be making projection into the next 20 or even 40 years. For the 20-year-old today, if they continue to work by the time when they retire in 40 years' time, how much will they be able to accrue under the scheme? We also know how to do the projections and calculations. So will you also be taking into account the offsetting arrangement? But then that will be somewhat difficult, right? But then if you do not take that into account, then it's really not going to reflect the real situation, because we do have the offsetting arrangement right now. So if you do not factor that in, then we will not be able to draw any meaningful conclusion. Today, we are asking that for a 65-year-old, how much he'll be able to get under the MPF system. So we are just trying to show what the situation is like. Well, even without the offsetting, I am not asking you how much will the grassroots get. So just give us the average figure after the offsetting. Well, it should not have been difficult to get the average figure that one will get under the MPF. All you need to do is to ask the fund managers how much they have paid out last year for to how many people, and then you just average that out, so that I will be able to tell what people are facing today with the offsetting arrangement in place. And if you do not have that figure with you, then it simply doesn't make sense. It simply is not convincing unless you're not willing to give us the figures. Or else how can you show that these 3 pillars are working? Because you're just debating on the basis of theories. And well, you said that World Bank says that it's okay, but then World Bank doesn't have this offsetting arrangement. But then in our case, we have. That's my argument. And when it comes to personal saving for an average 60-year-old, I suspect that you might have some difficulty in getting that figure. But then how come HSBC is able to get it? So how come HSBC can calculate the figure? So you will have to tell us somehow, for an average citizen, by the time he retires, how much he has saved up as personal saving, and then I'll be able to tell if that pillar is working too. Please do not just say that if that doesn't work either, then everything will go back to the administration. Yes, we know that, but then what's the burden going to be like? We have to know it. But then if we do not have any idea about the first 2 pillars, then how can I tell what the pillar is going to be like? So we are all trying to be reasonable. So what I was asking was whether or not the administration had conducted any studies on the 3 pillars. I'm sure you have. I'm sure just the CPF must have done many studies, but then you're just not telling us the results or findings. So can you tell us what's the analysis like on the 3 pillars? You don't have to tell us the findings. You just need to give us the actual figures. Can that be done? And then the next thing that I'm going to put to Mr. Chow, well, just now I was putting the questions to Ms. Wong. Okay, my questions for Mr. Chow is that when Professor Chow comes up with a proposal, and what if he doesn't come up with a proposal? What's the consideration of the administration? So can you tell us those? Yes, Ms. Wong. All right, when I go back, I'll see if I can provide further figures on the basis of what the honorable member just asked. Well, for some of the questions on what the CPU had done, yes, it had conducted some studies. So I'll get back to the LWB. Ms. Wong, if you do not have any specific data, then how about the other related references? I would also like to get them. Yes, I'll try my best. Yes, Mr. Chow, Madam Chair. With regard to our consideration under the different scenarios and packages, we hope that the review will help to take the matter forward so that we can have an open and pragmatic discussion on that. So the discussion is not just within this council. We also have to talk to the employees and employers, and of course there would be a financial commitment on the part of the administration, and of course we will also have to look at how we can fund that. So whether or not there will be one option that will be the best, or should we offer several options to the community to discuss? Well, it's too early to say. Well, Professor Chow will be looking at some of the proposals by the community and also the 3 pillars and their sustainability. So Professor Chow should be able to come up with some objective data for the community to discuss whether or not he's able to consolidate everything into one single proposal. Well, it depends on what the outcome is. What if Professor Chow is not able to come up with a proposal? Then what is the administration going to do? Well, in the study, Professor Chow emphasizes the fact that he is an independent consultant because he's been looking into data for several decades now. He's an academic on this, and our requirement is that he will at least have to conduct analysis on the options that I just referred to. What if he is not able to come up with any conclusion? Very often the academics will say that this is the conclusion and then it's for the administration to decide. So what if he doesn't come up with any proposal? Well, the review report will be submitted to the COP and also the dedicated task force. We also have some members sitting on that task force. By then, we will look at the concluding report to see how that can help to take the matter forward to the next stage. And just now, Mr. Chiang asked if there will be several options and what are their cost effectiveness, and also there will be some observations and so on. We'll get back to the COP and also the task force, and the 2 working groups also comprise people from different sectors of the community. We also have some representatives from the welfare sector. We also have some scholars, academics. So it's an open platform to look at the final report to see how we can facilitate our next stage discussion. Thank you. Next, Tang Ka-Piu. Madam Chair. Yes, we all know that Professor Chow will have this homework, and he will also have to come up with a conclusion, and this is of critical importance to our subcommittee. But as our colleague Mr. Leung Yiu-chung said, be more specific. Well, how about looking at the inadequacy of our MPF system, and then we do have our reviews in criticizing the inadequacy of the 3-pillar approach. So should we work on that basis, or should we set priority as to what we're going to discuss next? And then we only have a very thin document, and I'm concerned that Ms. Wong will come back and say that, well, this is what we have, and then you will just assume that the annual return rate will be about 5 or 9%. I think they're just cooking up the figures. Well, of course, I do have a lot of views on the MPF scheme. But then should that be the basis for our discussion? Because I have no idea as to how we can take the matter forward. So are we going to just adjourn the meeting now? No. For the issues that you and Mr. Leung Yiu-chung just raised, well, from the welfare angle, we'll be taking them up with the administration. We will also be talking to some non-government organizations. No, we're not going to wrap up our work yet. So they have submitted a paper. That's why we are giving them our feedback. Next, Lang Kwok Hong. All right, there is no point in discussing the MPF system with them. We are looking at the 3 pillars. And if you just, is it okay to just scrap MPF? And of course, they will say no, because that's very much what they are hanging on to. So I think when we discuss the matter with them, we understand that whether it's in the community or what. Mr. Tang Ka-Piu, please don't leave yet. I understand that some people are suggesting that we should just do away with the MPF scheme. I think they have harbored a lot of grievances and discontent, and if you were to scrap the MPF, and if you said that in the long run is not going to work, and if people do not have any saving, then what happens? Well, members are now asking you, when are you going to introduce universal retirement protection? Professor Chow, well, in March he took up the job, and then we started the filibustering. And then if if we had not done that, then you would not have made that move, and now you're passing the buck on to Professor Chow. And this year, if we do that again, then what are you going to do? Are you going to ask Chow Wing-hung? Are you going to ask Chow Wing-hung to do it? So this year, you're going to face another filibustering. So what I'd like to say again is that you will have to make a commitment. That is, before C.Y. Leung leaves office, you will have to work on this. And how much money will be set aside for this? All right, last year, you talk about a seed money, and this year, it's been mooted that it will cost some $750 billion, and then or $75 billion, and then you're actually working on a border control point, and you're spending a lot of money on that. So how much will that cost? How much are you prepared to spend? When I talk to some people or some members of the community, I find it really laughable. Apparently, the administration has no idea as to what is happening now, but then apparently you can tell what is going to happen in the future. You're not able to come up with the figures right now. Even if you had the figures, you have not done any reviews or studies, so you have deliberately made it impossible for us to discuss it. Why don't you disclose everything so that we can analyze the situation ourselves? We do not necessarily have to engage an international expert. The reason why they have been able to do that in the past, that's because you provided the information. So why are you locking up everything in your safety box? And the second thing that I'd like this administration to do is, there are two things. Number one, the so-called OALA. What's the situation like? Because in my ward office, the elders have no idea as to what they should be doing. Should they be putting a stamp on the envelope to make the asset declaration? And they do not know how to fill out the forms. They cry. Actually, I told you this last year. I told you that this was going to happen. And I said that if they jump to their death, then I would definitely slap C.Y. Leung on his face. Who else? Matthew Cheung. I would definitely slap on his face on behalf of the deceased. I'm prepared to go to jail for that. I've told you last year that this is a draconian initiative. And then, which elder, after he reaches 60, between 60 and 65, how many of them became CSSA recipients? And then after CSSA, how long would it take before he becomes a CSSA recipient again? Definitely, there are people out there. So after you pay them, how come that still happens? So why haven't you come up with such data? Because of your bad system, all right, people have to put up with poverty for 5 years after reaching 60, and then after 65, after they have got the OALA, for how much longer can they sustain before they become poor again? You should have the figures. Please don't tell us that you don't have the figures, because you have to apply for funding. I've told you many times, if you want to get the figures, well, just look at the welfare payment, because even in the U.S., all they need to do is to carry with them the social security card. It's like a driver's license. So you're trying to identify the poor people, not the rich. So if you're prepared to offer them some incentives, telling them that they'll be able to get that for life, so why bother to tell them that you're going to die and there is no way that you can be cured? So I'm not going to talk to them anymore because they are very barbaric. Next, Peter Cheung. I'd like to draw a line here. After Peter Cheung has asked his question, then we'll turn to the specifics. Peter Cheung.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to remind Mr. Chow that you have not answered my question concerning the CPU's study on the 3 pillars. The best is to give us all the reports, and if they have not done any full report, if they only have a partial report, or if they have only raw data, give them to me. So can he answer me this question? Madam Chairman, I also want to ask Mr. Chow and Ms. Wong. Now, this council has set up this subcommittee on retirement protection. And we also know that there is the COP. The COP cannot represent the government. There is a third party, which is the government, and that is a fourth party, which is the groups that made the various proposals. Since we have this subcommittee, I hope that we can work together, put aside our differences, and go for the common points and find a solution to provide universal retirement protection. That's what I wish. I want to ask the government officials with regard to this four-party situation, how should we work together? And how should we divide our work? Mr. Chow. Concerning the study on the three pillars, I will reflect this to the CPU. In fact, the study was done a few years ago. It's better to have old information than have no information, though the information is a few years ago, or was a few years ago. Now, with statutory minimum pay, there has been a substantial increase in real wage of the low-income earners in recent years. Now, we asked Professor Chow to conduct a study on the proposals made by the community. We also provide more data to Professor Chow. The economist also has participated in the study. As for government expenditure on CSSA or Social Security, and also the age groups, the proportion of population in relevant age groups receiving OA, LA, disability allowance, or CSSA. We have such data, and we have provided it to the consultancy team. The team will also look into the adjustment mechanisms. As for the relationship between the various committees or parties, we will invite the representatives of relevant departments to attend this subcommittee's meeting. As for the COP, it has a task force on Social Security and a task force on retirement protection. The task force will look into this. Will consider the study report of Professor Chow, and then it will plan for a wider public engagement exercise. The task force, having discussed the report by Professor Chow, will make recommendations to the COP. Whether it is the task force or this subcommittee or the COP, we will be fully involved. Professor Chow's study has considered proposals from the community. Professor Chow's team has conducted interviews, and through those interviews, the proposals have become more concrete, and data have been used to check with the models. In fact, we are doing very solid work, and we have done some projections, and only by doing projections can we see whether we need to put more money into that. We are not, let me answer Mr. Leung's question, we are not just looking into future protection. We are also launching various measures, such as the subsidy for low-income families, which have incomes, which have low incomes. If low-income families have more children, they will be given a bigger allowance. We hope that that will help social mobility. And this will, by giving them more subsidy, they can spend on their children's education, and that will help to enhance social mobility. And also help to deal with aging population. Members, the administration has given us a paper, therefore we have commented on the paper, and we have given our views on that. We now, I think, have concluded our discussion on that paper. We then need to consider various, two things at least. First, we need to fix our meeting timetable. And number two, we need to meet with the community groups. In fact, I have met with some of the groups. If there is no objection, then we can make an arrangement. Let us first discuss the meeting schedule. Shall we meet on a monthly basis? The timetable provided by the Secretariat is Tuesday morning. Which week of the month?
OK 好，如果上就好啲。OK 好，我哋打定先。不如如果見團體嘅，我諗上晝就可以。但我要同客，我同同事傾啲啊，因為我自己都係發展嘅。係啊，我知道，都係分啲星期六好大會唔做。好啊好。睇有咩意見大家？如果係星期二嘅上，
即係 Tuesday morning. Why the first one is in the afternoon. But in the afternoon there may be a development panel meeting. In fact, they choose one afternoon because that will be convenient for the deputations. Do we agree that we have our meetings in the morning? I think quite a number of our members are members of the development panel as well. So Tuesday morning. Is it the last Tuesday of every month? Not necessarily so. Well then, 25th of March, 29th of April, 20th of May, 27th of May, 24th of June, and 22nd of July. So 2 meetings in May. Yes, right.
冇咗20啦，因為
冇咗20啦嘛。
Maybe we cross out the 20th of May. So once every month. 10:45, Tuesday morning. Long hair. We cross out the 20th of May? Yes, indeed. Right, you're right. Okay, we cancel the one on the 20th of May, and then 25th of March in the morning, 10:45. All right. Concerning the deputations, the community groups are longing to speak to us. Why they want to come to us? According to Professor Chow, by May the report may be ready, but according to Mr. Chow, it's middle of the year. My view is that before the report is given to the COP, the team should come to us. It is not a new issue. It has been arguing back and forth in the community for many years. Assuming that you come to us in May, Mr. Chow, you've heard us. Now you come to us in May, and what you have, then we have March and April meeting. Now through the promotion of this subcommittee, we want to raise the awareness of the community on this issue. The Vice Chairman. I think Mr. Chow will have to speak on this. 27th of May is rather late in May. Will the report be available before the 27th of May? If not, then the 27th of May meeting will have no content. We may switch the date from the 27th of May to early June. I think we need to talk to you on this date. Mr. Chow, the study is commissioned by the COP. According to the plan, the report will go to the Social Security and Retirement Protection Task Force, and then the task force will report to the COP. If we follow the procedure, then the report will go to the COP first, and when the report has been adopted, then the report will be published, and that is more appropriate. As for May, we will have to go back and look at the timetable to see if we can go through the procedure I mentioned before that date, and then I will come back to the Secretariat before we can confirm whether we can do it on the 27th of May. What are members' views? Mr. Leung Kok Hong. Well, we have no control over COP. The COP can discuss Professor Chow's report for several months. Well, whether you accept the report or not, you have, if you do not return the report to Professor Chow and ask him to redo it, then you have to accept it. The COP is using Hong Kong people's money, taxpayers' money. I really find the handling absurd. Who dares to criticize Professor Chow's report? The COP will look at the final report of Professor Chow, and the report will become a basis for discussion by the members of the public widely, and we believe that includes the discussion by the Council and this subcommittee. That will be an important element. Chairman, I find it utterly not acceptable. We can't control you. We can't supervise the government in this regard. You can sit on the report, and we are just jumping up and down waiting for the release of the report. Then you can release the report in the summer, during the legislative summer recess, and no one will be there to discuss with you. The COP is just appointed by the government to do a certain task. Why can't the Legislative Council look at it? I think Professor Chow's report cannot be changed unless he has made an obvious mistake. How dare you criticize him? Can you be better than him, academically speaking? You have power. And that's the only reason. Chairman, the study was commissioned by the CPU, and the COP decided on appointing Professor Chow to do the study, and the COP will consider how to disclose the report to the public. And I will bring Mr. Leung's view to the CPU, telling the CPU that some members want to see the report first. Mr. Leung. I think Mr. Chow can speak on this. Do the CPU and the COP want to conceal part of the report of Professor Chow? Do they want to just selectively disclose part of the report? If that is the case, then it is really not acceptable.
Because whether it's the CPU or the task force, they are using public money, and we've been following up on this for more than 20 years. And if you might be disclosing the report in a selective manner, then just forget about it. If that's not what you meant, then please clarify it. The only option, or what I'm going to accept is, okay, you have engaged Professor Chow, and the COP is the entrusting body, and there is no reason why a third party should be shown the report first, and therefore Professor Chow will be submitting the report to the COP first. But then the COP should not be the one deciding on how and when the report should be disclosed. You should not be the one making the decision. That's not acceptable. So I'd like to clarify with you if that's your thinking right now. Mr. Chow? Well, the COP also comprises representatives from different quarters of the community. It doesn't just comprise government officials. So we'll be discussing on that platform as to how we can take the matter forward. So we'd like to facilitate public discussion on this, and more than one member has said that he'd like to have the whole report disclosed in its totality. So I'll be reflecting this to the COP for its consideration. I think you have not answered the question raised by Mr. Alan Leong. Just now, you said that you'd be disclosing the report or releasing the report in its totality to the community. So what I'm asking for is to release the report to both the COP and this council in tandem. So apparently you're giving people the impression that you might be withholding parts of it and you might be disclosing it later or not. Why are you doing this? So please remember, this is the council. You can never represent it in your commission. So there is no way that you can have anybody representing this council on the commission. All right, it's okay if you submit it an hour or two later. All right, in the morning you might submit it to the COP, and then you can submit it to us in the afternoon. That would be acceptable to me. Otherwise, that would not be acceptable. Mr. Peter Cheung, I'm sure Mr. Chow can see that we are speaking in one voice. So please do not think that we are speaking in different voices. Well, we are actually unanimously saying that Professor Chow's report should be submitted to this council as well. Well, even if it's late by one day, it's okay. And of course, if you receive it in the morning, then it's better if you can submit it to us in the afternoon. I do respect the fact that the COP should be the one receiving the report first, but then it should pass it on to us as soon as possible. So please go back and tell your supervisor. We don't want to make your life difficult. In fact, we can understand that you are not supposed to speak on behalf of your supervisor, but then please do convey this request to your supervisor and let him or her know that it's a very strong sentiment. So I suggest that we should write to the COP and the chairman that we do have this demand. That's because it's something that the entire community is concerned about. And there are many groups that are waiting for this report so that they can give their input. We are not prepared to accept that the COP will be laboring on it before the community is allowed to discuss it. Any further comment? All right, when we filibuster, under the head CPU and so on, we'll be slashing any funding for them. Okay, so do we agree that in the name of the subcommittee, we should write to the Chief Secretary? All right, we'll do precisely that. What we'd like to tell Mr. Chow is that you should also convey this to the administration. All right? So this is our request. Next, my question for members is in March, should we invite deputations to come to meet with us? What's your view? All right, we have 2 time slots. We have 2 time slots. One is in March, the other is in April. And if we want the entire community to discuss this, then it's been set aside for quite a while. Well, all the deputations are out there looking closely at what is going to happen. So why don't we invite them to come along so that we can have a discussion with them? All right. So tentatively, it will be fixed in March. So if there aren't that many deputations, then we should be able to complete a discussion within a time slot. And if there are more than what we expect, then we'll see what we can do. And other than informing those who have come before, should we also release notice online? Yes. We should send out the invitation online. Yes. Okay, so after these 2 have been dealt with, any further questions? If not, then all right, thank you very much. We would also like to thank the officials for coming today. Very rarely are we able to finish early. So on this occasion, we have been able to adjourn early. Thank you.